something that's been really helpful for me is EFT tapping. EFT tapping is also called emotional freedom technique, or sometimes people just call it tapping. I found out about it just over a year ago, and it's something that I use almost every day now because it's simple, it's free, and it's fucking effective. So if you want to learn how to do this on your own for free, a way to process emotions, a way to reduce stress by up to 40%, a way to help regulate your nervous system for free using your hands and your voice, I'm going to walk you through that. So EFT has been around. It was originally invented in the 70s, but it didn't really start to show up more seriously on the scene in psychology until about the 90s, when they started testing it with soldiers who had PTSD. And they found really good results, that it does help. It affects both the amygdala and the hippocampus in your brain, which is the stress center and the memory center of your brain. So while you are reducing your cortisol, reducing your stress, you're also able to like access these old memories, access the emotions that you've associated with the old memories, and reprocess them. One of the important things in EFT is mindfulness about the problem. It's talking about the issue. And then there's a phrase or some variation of this phrase that you use in your setup statement while you're getting ready to do a full round of EFT. And the phrase is basically, even though I X, even though I'm feeling sad, even though I'm upset about this, even though I keep repeating this pattern, even though I ate too much cheese last night, I deeply and completely love and accept and forgive myself. In clinical trials, they repeat this 3 times. I don't think, in my experience, you necessarily have to do the same thing over and over again. But, you know, when you're doing a clinical trial, you have to make things repeatable. Anyway, so that's one of the most important things. And it's really like a beautiful way to start telling yourself that you love yourself, if that's not something you do already. It wasn't something that I did. And since starting this practice, I tell myself that I love myself multiple times a day now, and the inside of my brain is so much sweeter, which allows me to be a lot nicer to the people around me. And I'm a work in progress, certainly. Second part of EFT is tapping sequentially through these specific 8 or 9 points. And while you're tapping through these points, you're talking about your problem. And you're like, Meg, why would I want to talk about my problem? I'm trying to get rid of the problem. I don't want to focus on it. Isn't that like the antithesis to manifesting? Fear not. It is not the antithesis. And actually, hear me out, looking at the problem full out, like fully being unafraid to look under the bed at the scary monster, oftentimes will show you that A, it's not a scary monster. It's just like a dust bunny or an old coat or whatever. It really helps you clean out the gunk that's in you. Because if you're too afraid to look at the problem, you're throwing things into your shadow. If you think about the patterns that you repeat in your life, the things that are stopping you from going after your goals, the like little subtle ways that you're self-sabotaging, it's because there's a fear there and your body feels like it's not safe. So your subconscious has all these tricky ways of creating this little rule book for survival for you, but that rule book for survival becomes outdated. And using EFT tapping can help you update your rule book for survival, for thrival, for living in a more aligned way, and for like, you know, times are changing. You got to update the system processor in order to keep up. So I'm going to teach you how to craft your own EFT script, and I'm going to show you the points, and you can do this for free. You can like take charge and responsibility for your life and start healing yourself from the inside out. Like, you are so powerful. You have the answers, and it's time that you are handed the keys back to get back in the driver's seat of your own life and like reignite the trust in yourself that maybe you haven't felt since you were a kid, and maybe you've never felt. And I want you to feel that way, and I want to feel that way. I think everybody should feel that way. So, okay, one of the other things, aside from the I deeply and completely love and accept myself phrase, is being hydrated. Okay, so the first thing when you're doing tapping for yourself is to do the setup statement. So this is kind of honing in on the problem. If you're just in a bad mood and not really sure where it comes from, or you are repeating a pattern, you see yourself repeating a pattern in your life, maybe it's an attachment style, that it's just making you very frustrated and you're not 100% sure what it comes back to in childhood. You don't need to 100% know. This is kind of like playing Jenga, you know? Sometimes you pull the right, it would be a fail in Jenga, but it's a win for tapping. Like sometimes you pull the right piece and the whole thing falls down, and you can attack it from lots of different angles. So, you know, you're complicated. This isn't an exercise in perfection, and just be gentle with yourself, please. Okay, so the first point that we use for the setup statement is called the side of the hand point, and it's this fleshy part between your pinky finger and the start of your wrist. And I prefer to use my dominant hand on my non-dominant hand, but you can do either or. If you really wanted to, I suppose you could like tap the side of both hands on your knees or on a desk. Not necessary, but if that feels fun, by all means, please. So we're tapping on the side of the hand and you're just kind of circling the issue. Tapping is the most effective when you pick one topic per session. And you might find that at the beginning, you want to clear everything out. Again, not an exercise in perfectionism, so it's okay to do one at a time. You're never going to be healed. There's always layers. And the goal is really, for me, I guess, to do a tapping session is to bring down the stress or the anxiety that I'm feeling in that moment so that I can get back to being present and living my life. Okay, so on the side of the hand, and you just are talking about whatever the problem is. You can also journal and tap on the side of the hand while you're reading your journal entry to kind of get yourself more clarity. But don't be afraid to really dig into the problem, really dig in and get as negative as you can think about. We're not going to stay here. We're not going to stay in the muck and live in the negative. But again, like looking at that monster under the bed and really being unafraid to face whatever it is that you're avoiding, it's okay. So even though in this example, let's just use I ate too much cheese. Even though I ate too much cheese and I'm feeling upset with myself, I deeply and completely love and accept and forgive myself. And you can stay on the side of the hand the whole time if you want to, especially if you're in public. This is a really discreet way to regulate your nervous system, bring down your cortisol, and also not look like a crazy person, because the full tapping, you're tapping on these different acupressure points in your face, and if you've never seen someone do it before, it can look a little kooky. So if you're at the office or in a public space and feeling stressed, like this is a great one. Ideally, you're saying it out loud, but if that's not available to you in the moment, just tapping on the side of the hand and like thinking about things can help shift the mood and shift your energy too. So another thing is like benchmarking where you're at on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 to 4 alarm fire. And then checking in with yourself again at the end of the tapping session to see how stressed you feel. And ideally we'll have shifted down the gradient of stress. So if you started an 8 and you finish at a 3, that's incredible. That means you're doing it right. And so pat on the back. So when you have honed in on the issue, and usually I'll stop on the side of the hand when I feel like I've got it. Like sometimes an old memory will pop up, or I'll feel a shift in my mood. Like I'll either start laughing at myself, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you know, it's this problem again, or if I've really hit a nerve and I start crying, I know that I'm on to something. Or if you have some big yawns, whenever you intuitively feel that it's time to move on, it's time to move on. And then you'll get into the rest of the tapping points. And here you can continue to talk about the issue until you feel more of a shift. Then you'll love, accept, and forgive yourself. And then you'll start talking about what you'd like instead. So you really got to like clean that wound out before you can put on the salve. You know, you don't want to like put a Band-Aid on a cut that has a bunch of dirt in it. It's not the proper way to do it. It's not the most effective and efficient way to heal. These are the different tapping points, and this is like close enough is close enough, just like horseshoes. You can't mess it up. If you have mobility issues and one of these points isn't available to you, skip it, totally fine. If one of the points is feeling good, you can stay there and just tap on that area like for a few sentences or the whole time if you want to. This is really, I just want to assure you, you can't explode yourself, you're not doing it wrong, and while there is like a spot that you can hit, by using a couple of fingers, you'll be getting the general area close enough, and it's going to be effective. So it's all good. Now, you might be stressed about like how many times do I tap on a point while I'm talking? Kind of doesn't really matter. This is a very forgiving practice. You want to tap like, I guess the minimum is like 7 times on a point. It's really long enough to say a sentence before you move on to the next point. The points follow gravity. We're going to start on the top of the head and go down. If you forget one, it's fine. If you want to end in the middle and you feel like you're done, that's fine. You don't have to complete a full cycle. I usually do just because it feels good to me to finish on the final point, which is the 2 wrists together. I think that should answer, hopefully, some of your burning questions. If you have more, leave them in the comments. I'm happy to expound further on this. So you're starting on the top of the head. I like to use 2 hands. I feel like it gets both sides of the brain going. It's how I was taught, but you can use one if you want. You can use your dominant hand or your non-dominant hand, and you don't need to be slapping yourself in order to be effective. It's just kind of a light pressure, enough to feel it. And if you're ending up with bruises, I have a friend who's like, I think I bruised myself, I'm sore. That's too hard. So lighten up. And if it's like imperceptible, a whisper of pressure, maybe increase it a little bit. Okay, so first point is the top of the head. It's going to be like, if you have a center part, it's right there in the middle of the head. If your head came to a point, it's where the point would be. My part is a little millennial off to the side, so I can't use that. And just, you know, percussing with both hands, alternating one then the other, and saying your sentence here. The next point is the start of the eyebrows. If you have one eyebrow, it would be where they would separate if you chose to pluck it. So at the start of the eyebrows, where that hair is on the bone. Oh, that's nice. The next point is the side of the eye, and it's really on that bone, on like the eye bone, I don't know, the occipital, orbital, something, and less so on your temple, so on the bony part there. The point after that is under the eye. So if you're looking straight ahead, it's where your pupil would be, directly on that bony ridge there. And if you're feeling like, ooh, that spot's a little tender in any of these, it means you're hitting it right on. So, you know, lessen your pressure, just be gentle. The spot after that is in this little cupid's bow here between your nose and your mouth. I use one hand. I typically use my dominant hand, but it's like, sometimes it's funsiest to use the other one. And you can do it like this, like poking yourself, or with the side of your fingers. It's all gravy. The next is where your teeth meet your chin bone, where your teeth like set into your mandible. Mandible? It's mandible, right? Again, one hand, just because it's a smaller point. the point after that, this was my favorite point. It's just under the collarbones. So I like to use like little claw hands here, and it just kind of like buckshots the whole area and really, see, even just tapping without talking about it can help your system calm down. Yeah, so just really getting in there. The point is actually like an inch just under the collarbones, but I like to move around a little bit because it feels good. The next point is under the arm. So it's on the side of your ribs, where your bra strap would be if you were wearing one. And it's, I typically just go one side on this, but I've seen people like hug themselves and do both. You can use your dominant hand, your non-dominant hand. I like to alternate just to keep things fresh. And then the last point is the two wrists together. So it's just like right where your wrist starts if you bend your hands backwards, and tapping those together just really seals it in, chef's kiss. So just like another quick run through of those points: top of the head, start of the eyebrow, side of the eye, under the eye, under the nose, under the mouth, collarbones, under the arm, and two wrists together. And that will be one round of tapping. There's no rule for how many rounds you have to do in order to process through a problem. Sometimes I will tap for 5 minutes or less. If it's just something little, if you wanted to even do affirmations, this is a fun way to kind of like get those into your subconscious deeper and to make sure that you're really like processing them. If it's a bigger issue, I have tapped on my own for 45 minutes, an hour. You can't tap too much. You won't die from tapping too much. But if you're feeling irritable or tired, or you've had like these big shifts and movements in your body, and you've tapped on a big subject that you've been dealing with for a long time, be gentle and maybe take a day or a couple of days off before your next tapping session, just to give yourself some time to process. There's definitely, when I first learned about it, I was really excited and I was doing it multiple times a day. And when I would hit these bigger topics, it did take me a couple of steps back. When you have a big like emotional release, you just need a little more time to process. So that is how you use tapping. You can use it yourself for free anywhere you're at. I love a walk-in tap. I like to walk around my neighborhood and do it. There's something about like moving my body through space while I'm doing it that really helps kind of get me in the zone and to not judge what I'm saying and just let it flow. That's kind of my sweet spot. So you can experiment with where you like to do it. I've done it in my car, in the parking lot, there's no wrong way to tap. So I would say that if you're doing some big emotional tapping, don't do it while you're driving. And it can be helpful to journal before, like I was saying, and you can even just read your journal notes while you're tapping through the points. That can be really helpful. And yeah, happy tapping. If you want or need help with some of these bigger issues, it can be tricky to do everything by yourself, or sometimes it's easier for somebody else to kind of see the issue. I'm a tapping practitioner, and you can find the link to my website with my rates and my schedule there, and I'd be happy to help. And you can really use this for anything that you're feeling stressed about. I know that they've done studies on tapping for food cravings, on tapping for diet, on tapping for staying consistent with exercise. I know people who have been successful. My mentor, Gala Darling, has used tapping for an eating disorder and solved that for herself. She has cured herself of asthma, does not use an inhaler anymore. They're doing a study right now And if you're interested in the study, there's a woman called Peta Stapleton, I'll link her stuff below, who is one of the world-leading researchers on tapping, and she is conducting a study right now on tapping for improving your vision. So the sky is really the limit, and yeah, go forth and let me know what you use tapping on and what was your reaction, and is it helping? And if you have any requests for tapping videos, I love this tool so much, and it can really change your life if you let it.